You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we are between the second and third test of the India-England series. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of team news from both camps. We'll be getting into all of that and maybe briefly reflecting on any fallout from the second test. We can go back to the first test.
First and second.
I'm Jack Hope. Yeah, I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Max rowe-brown for this episode. How you doing, Max?
Yeah, very good, thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that I'm somewhere else. I'm in a different room at the house where there isn't a load of crap behind me, so you can enjoy that for this episode.
That's only. Good. Oh, okay, all right. Well, nice update. Max, this week I actually got, I wouldn't say hate mail, but I had people privately messaging me asking me where the next podcast was.
Wow.
Here it is, and why have we been away so long?
How long has it been?
I don't know, like 4 days.
It's been that long, has it? It wrapped up it was about a week ago, wasn't it? The test wrapped up. It feels like it's been so long, doesn't it? Because there hasn't been any cricket between India and England, and it's been so good and so engaging. I think just that week off has left everyone feeling a little empty. So maybe that's why. But we're here now, so you can enjoy that.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about the second test. We'll be doing team news for both sides, maybe making some calls. If we've got time, I want to construct, because it's Super Bowl Sunday, I want to construct an NFL offense out of cricketers playing in this series. That might be something we can fit in right at the end of the show. That's actually what I'm most excited about.
Right, well, let's rattle through the actual content then. Let's get it out of the way.
I've given it no thought, but like you never know what will happen. And we might briefly touch on the SA20 and the Under-19s World Cup, which just concluded as well. Max, I'm thinking back to the second test here. Post day 4, we did a little wrap up of the match, or an hour long wrap up. We did our customary end of test show. Before we fully close the book on that, is there any other fallout or any messages or anything at all that you think we missed that we might want to air our opinions on?
I don't think there's a huge amount. There's obviously like all the squad stuff that came after. I quite liked the. I don't think we mentioned, did we, what England's plans were between the tests? Because obviously we knew by that point. I don't think we covered where England were spending the gap between the second and third test. So maybe that's something that we should have a quick chat about. See what we think.
Well, let's just wrap it up into the whole England preview then. We'll say there's nothing from the second test. I mean, there was a little bit of Ben Stokes complaining about DRS, and
just ignored that. Really, it was just silly.
I
actually thought that ball was out in real time when I watched it.
Okay, there you go. That's Max's opinion on that. I think there is the potential that it would have been umpire's call and they got the impact point wrong, but it was going to probably hit the stumps, so I don't think anyone can complain that much. It's not.
I mean, I guess the wider point is valid. Sometimes it does get the impact point wrong, and we have seen that. But I think in this case, the umpire gave it out anyway, didn't he? So, no,
that was out on review.
It was out on review, right? Yeah, but I don't. It's not changed the result, has it? I don't think we can pin England's defeat on this one bit of DRS. Sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. That's what umpire's call is there for, because of the little bit of uncertainty there is. So I mean, it's better having it than not having it. It's not like VAR. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah. Like that's the second test done there. Max, you said that England have jetted off. I actually heard that most of the team haven't even taken their cricket kit on their 5-day with the exception of Dan Lawrence, who's going to play 2 franchise matches.
I know.
Whilst he's on holiday. Do you want to give us your thoughts on England's between test mini break?
It's the modern world, isn't it? Dan Lawrence off to play some T20 in the middle of a test series. Unheard of, but I mean, the likelihood of him actually playing for England is, it would be based on injuries, and if they're not training in between that period, the likelihood of someone picking up an injury is pretty slim. So you might as well get out there and play a bit of cricket. One way or another, it's it's worth doing. I think I quite like it. I quite like having a refreshing approach. We talked about before the sort of the preparation for the series itself, where they went to the UAE. They didn't go to India. They didn't get a practice match in. They just did a bit of training there somewhere else and sort of kind of kept it a bit separated, kept it a bit fresh. And I can see the logic behind it, because like we said, like the likelihood of getting a warm-up match before the series that would actually be of any benefit to what was going to be coming out was probably fairly slim, although that might have been predicated on what we thought the pitches would be like, and we've been pleasantly surprised on that point. But it's a decent length of break. I think keeping things fresh mentally is really important when you're away for an extended period of time. And I mean, I think the Indian players, a lot of them went back to see their families as well, didn't they? Obviously, England weren't going to be doing that because it's substantially further to travel. But I have absolutely no issue with it. I think if England start slowly in the third test, then obviously the usual commentators will have something to say about it, I expect. But I have absolutely no issue. I quite like them approaching things differently and just thinking like, we play enough cricket. 1 week isn't going to make a difference. Let's recharge after 2 pretty intense tests. Let's face it, there was there was a lot going on. There was a lot to talk about, and come back ready, fit and firing for the third test, which is going to be, I think, a really, really important one as well.
Yeah, I think I've got a couple of thoughts on it. I mean, I think if I'm assuming here they're going to do some exercise. So
they're just sitting around having cocktails by the pool. I'm assuming that's not happening. They're going to do some bingo.
I don't think that's what the plan is. So, from the perspective of match fitness, I think they'll probably be okay there. I would like to think as well that if one of the batters or a bowler think they have a technical issue that they can work on in that time, that they have taken their kit and they are going to go to the nets and they are going to do a little bit of work on whatever that is, and they're just going to be completely willfully ignorant of the fact that there might be a problem. I'm looking at the team. I'm not sure there's one player that right now you'd say, oh, there's a glaring issue with what they do, but perhaps they internally think that. And a lot of bowlers we know like to bowl regularly between tests for rhythm purposes.
Yeah.
I mean, like, obviously,
you don't need a lot of kit to go bowling, do you?
But I don't, really have an issue with that. I mean, I think like where you will get pushed back, like you said, if England start slowly in the next match, it will be mainly from people who are relating their experience of playing cricket to international cricket, if that makes sense. Like if you and I went on tour to India and we'd played 2 test matches, there would be substantial benefit in us using the 10 days between the second and third test to practice playing cricket, because we're quite bad. This is
assuming we don't need these 10 days for just a constant sports massage so that we can actually stand up for the third test.
Or to look at it another way, we have a lot of unrealised potential. Whereas with most of the England players, they're quite near where their maximum performance is going to be, and actually, there's probably something to be said, and I'm sure this is what they would say. There's something to be said for being in the right mental and physical shape to go to play to that potential, rather than draining yourselves in the nets. Like, it's different approaches for different people, probably, and as I said right at the beginning, like if there are players that think they need to work on something, I'm pretty sure they'll be doing some work on it. They're grown-ups, and that's in a sense the culture and ethos of the test camp for England at the moment, is that they are adults and they can make their own decisions. So I thought that was a bit of a non-issue, to be honest, but I'm sure it grated on some England fans.
Yeah, I suppose the only risk is that they won't have the opportunity to discover whether someone after 30 balls is unable to continue batting.
Well, this is true, and we'll get to India probably in part 2. There's a couple of other England points. The really big news that will impact the rest of the series is that Jack Leach's hematoma knee injury is worse than first thought. and so he's been withdrawn. He'll fly back to England and will not play a part in the rest of this Test series. That is quite a blow, I would say, for England.
It's massive. Firstly, I can't help but shake the huge sympathy for Jack Leach. That got to be the unluckiest cricketer, like really badly affected, by illness a few series ago, then injured for the Ashes, and then this. Like, it's just one thing after another, isn't it? It's really a series of unfortunate events, and he was, bowling nicely, looking like it was going to be a really key part of England's approach. So it sucks for him. But I think for me, where it causes the most problems for England is that because they're already, so we've seen the first 2 tests, they picked 3 spinners. And that means they can only have 1 seamer. And because Ben Stokes can't bowl, that means England only have 1 seamer. And that's quite unbalanced. You can say that. It's sort of worked reasonably well in the first 2 tests. But what not having Jack Leach does is, I think it robs them of the opportunity, or at least makes it a lot riskier to then bring in an extra seamer if they think that might be a better approach. Because, with all due respect to Rayan, Tom Hartley, and Shoaib Bashir, who acquitted themselves really well in the first 2 tests, they're inexperienced, they're young, and they're not fully formed as cricketers. Let alone in like Test match away in India in some of the hardest conditions against some of the best players, playing those conditions that you're going to get. So you can't really go into a side with just 2 of them and rely on one of them to be able to keep things tight and bowl 30 overs and only go at 3 and over. If you pick 2 of them and they both go a bit wrong, then you're asking Joe Root to pick up a load of leg work. That might not work, or you have to then bowl the seamers quite a lot, and you've sort of lost something. And that's where the risk is. If you've got Jack Leach, you can at least know that at one end you're probably going to get a really good return from 35 overs. Might not take bags of wickets, but he's not going to get pumped for 4.5 and over and cause problems. You can't 100% be sure about that with Hartley and Bashir and Rayan. And it's not because they're bad cricketers. It's just because that's the reality of the situation, isn't it? So it makes it a lot more difficult for England to be kind of flexible with that approach. And I think this is the kind of game coming up where actually like that, because what we've what may or may not be the case with the pitch and what we've seen at Rajkot in the past, that maybe an extra seamer might be helpful, especially if England were to win the toss. So it robs England of. I mean, aside from the fact it robs England of a really good player, like that bit's obvious. It does make the whole selection thing a lot trickier. So that's where I think probably the biggest loss is, obviously, aside from just Jack Leach, the cricketer.
Yeah, I think of players in the squad, he's probably in the top 3 most valuable from an England point of view. I think Joe Root by miles is the most valuable because he's
Joe Root.
He's their best batter and also not a bad bowling option.
Yeah.
After that, it could be Leach. It's probably Stokes for the whole Stokes factor and from a leadership perspective. But you could make a strong argument that Leach would be their next best player in India. For the reasons that you outlined. He just gives them a little bit more versatility. He's a bit of a safety net if one of the spinners goes wrong, and has, to some extent anyway, walked the talk in Asian conditions. Like he had a good tour last time he was there. He's been good in Sri Lanka a couple of times. And he had shown, over the last couple of years that he'd added a little bit more of an attacking string to his bow when needed as well. So big problem for England. One of the players stepping up, and I thought this was funny. Well, one of the players will have to step up. Rayan Ahmed did an interview this week, Max, where he said bowling maidens was boring, golf was boring. It's like, he just torched everything he didn't like, basically. Let's put the golf to one side, because that we might not see Rayan in the 3rd test after the comments like that after golf. So
that's like the 3rd most important thing about Bazball.
Yeah,
love of golf.
The maidens thing was interesting though. It's an unusual thing for a spin bowler to say, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I know you sort of had to think about this, and you made some pretty valid points about what like the role of a leg spinner is and that kind of thing. But I mean, from just from looking at taking it at face value, it seems like an utterly bizarre thing to say. I mean, he said, I'd rather bowl 4 bad balls in an over and take a wicket than bowl 16 good balls and not get a wicket. And okay, fine. Like, wickets are your currency, so you can. I mean, there is some logic there, but I mean, I feel like it just kind of bizarrely misses the point of, in Test cricket in particular, whatever approach you take, there is you cannot extricate bowling good balls consistently and making it difficult for the batter from taking wickets. Like, if you land 16 good balls on a spot and cause a batter a problem, get them pinned at one end, and they struggle to score runs, the chances of you being able to take a wicket increases. Like, that's just logic, right? That's just how
Is it logic?
Cricket. I think it is. That's just how it works, isn't it? I mean, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be your wicket. It might be you bowling in partnerships, aren't you? Someone else might take the wicket because you've built the pressure. But I mean, scoreboard pressure, like keeping things tight, making it difficult for batters, does translate to being able to take wickets. Like runouts, quite often happen on the back of someone trying to get off strike and them, doing something a bit riskier than they should. So I just think it's a bit, I don't know, it's like edgy, but it does seem like it kind of misses some of the point of bowling well and keeping it tight. But I mean, I quite like it. I like the candidness of it and the fact that he's speaking his mind. Fully on board with all of that, but I do think it's possibly a little extreme in that sense. I think, there's more. There's more to it.
I think he's trying to articulate something here, which is, like, I don't know if you'd lump this in with baseball, but you might to some extent. What I think he's trying to say is that I am going to try and bowl a ball that takes a wicket every single ball, and that might mean that my average ball is worse than it would be if I just tried to put it on the spot every ball. Yeah. But it means I am bowling a lot more wicket-taking deliveries, and I think that is so. I think that's what he's. I think that is really what he's trying to say there. And I think from a leg spinner's perspective, that is probably the way to go. Like, he is in the team, especially in these conditions. But really, probably anywhere. He is in the team to take a wicket when there are no other obvious wicket options, or there are a few other obvious wicket options, because leg spinners, and this is analytically borne out. Like, a leg spinner that bounces on a length on middle stump is the most dangerous ball, basically, that you can face in Test cricket if you're a right-handed batter. Because it spins away more than you expect. It'll have overspin on it. Well, obviously, because of the length it's bowled, it's very hard to go back or forward to. Brings the slips into play, brings off stump into play, brings LBW into play. It is statistically the hardest ball to face. But it's also incredibly difficult to bowl. So there's the yin and the yang to that. Like, if you just roll them out and try and hit that length without ripping it, like, it's sort of nothing. It will look nice, but you're not going to take any wickets. So I think that's kind of where he's going with that, is that he knows that his role is to try and bowl that perfect leg spinner that bounces on a length or middle stump when there's no other obvious wicket taking option from one of the other bowlers. And he knows to do that, he's going to bowl some long hops where he tries to spin it too hard and it gets stuck in his hand, or some full tosses where it comes out a bit early. In baseball in general, though, you can see England pursue this as a real tactic a lot. It's a proper old man shouts at cloud thing. We see regularly in England when England go to their bowling short at tail enders tactic. Now, when they do that, they know that the balls they're bowling are more likely to be hit for 4 or 6 or 35 off and over if Jasprit Bumrah is facing up against Stuart Broad. They know that is a possibility and that runs might come quickly, and that objectively speaking, a lot of the balls they bowl are going to be bad. What they also know is that tail enders really struggle to keep the ball down when they play against short pitch bowling. So there's a a pretty high chance from a strike rate perspective that they're going to hit a catch, versus if you put the ball on off stump where they'll just dead bat it and maybe hang around for a while somebody at the other end scores some runs. You can do the mathematical analysis of that, and you can see that sticking it in short, although yes, you will bowl more bad balls, you will also get the tail out quicker and for fewer runs. So I think that's where Rayan's going. I think actually it's a more nuanced thing that he's trying to express.
And that would be totally valid. That would be totally valid, right? I totally buy into that as as an argument. It's just I guess it's we're possibly attributing that argument to what he said, and if that is what he's trying to get across, then fair play to him. I won't argue with it. Leg spinners, generally speaking, they're in the side to take wickets. They're the attacking option. They've got more variations, like you say. It is it's a more dangerous style of bowling. So that no problem with that. It's just whether that is actually what he's saying, or whether he's just like I get bored easily. So.
Well, we don't know. Yeah, we're going to take a break now, and we're going to come back and talk about India. India squad news, Max. I don't want to get into it too quickly right now because we're going to take a break. You could basically do a squad news point about every single player in this team. I don't know what's going on here, but there's something to say about everyone. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Remember to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or follow us on Spotify, iTunes. It's not called iTunes anymore. Acast, Google, wherever you listen. Much appreciated. Be back in a second.